To kick off our session, it's my pleasure to welcome Sean Graglia, Marketing Director for Alencia XR, who will guide us through today's session. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam. Over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to hear and learn from many educators about the challenges with anatomy learning. And dissection remains at the cornerstone of teaching. But pressures are being affected on accessing cost and growing, and they're growing in terms of how they're unfolding. And student engagement is also a growing challenge as they expect the latest technology and support on how they learn. But what's exciting is that these XR technologies are actually built to address these kind of challenges and give broadening access and help make relationships clearer and help get the students engaged. So I'm really glad that you're able to share time with us today. And I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day and joining us and joining this panel so that we can talk about the technology and how that's addressing some of the challenges we talked about. So today, you're going to hear from our panelists how they brought immersive technology into their programs and what impact they've seen. And they're going to give us a little bit of advice on anyone considering the path to address today's challenges. So let's go over the agenda, and then I'll introduce my panel. So following just a few minutes of opening remarks, and we'll introduce our guests, and then we'll dive right into the panel discussion. After the discussion is complete, we'll have a few minutes to address any questions that you have from the discussion that you heard. And then I'll wrap up with a few insights on where to go next in your journey. So let's start by welcoming our guests today. And so first, I'd like to welcome and have him turn on his camera, Dr. Adam Jennings, Executive Director for Simulation Education, Innovation, and Research at the Ann Burnett Marion School of Medicine at Texas Christian University. Dr. Jennings has actually been instrumental in shaping TCU's anatomy curriculum, in addition to continuing to practice as an emergency medicine physician. So welcome, Dr. Jennings.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Excited to talk to you all about all this fun stuff.
Yeah. And we're also joined by Dr. Cameron Jeter. I'll get you to turn your camera on, Professor and Chair of Biomedical Sciences at the Kansas College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Jeter has been transforming neuroanatomy learning with immersive technology at Kansas Com. Welcome, Dr. Jeter.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. So we'll dive right into it, and I'll stop sharing, and so that we can have a deep discussion with each other. And let's dive right in. I thought we would start with what life was like before immersive technology entered the picture. What did anatomy teaching and your approaches look like, and what challenges or gaps were you facing? Dr. Jeter, let's start with you.
I represent a brand new medical school. We are now in our 4th year of education. And so the story begins as we founders discussed as an anatomy program, how do we want to deliver anatomy education at this new nascent institution? This meant that we were free from the tradition of long existing medical schools, had we been such a school. And we decided what we cared about most was speeding our students to mastery of anatomical structures and anatomical knowledge. This did not include, in our philosophy, long hours in cadaver dissection labs or faculty time spent preparing for prosection in labs. So even from the beginning, we decided to have small group activities, models, touch screens, and the like. I was even trying to build examples of the spinal cord using foam picnic plates that are connected by these vertical strings of yarn to represent the spinal tracts of the spinal cord. As you can tell, we decided we needed a bit more technology involved in this, and that's what led us eventually to adopt hollow anatomy, which I'm happy to talk about later, how that decision came to be and the transition to it.
I love the visualization of the paper plates and the strings we've talked about before, and I loved how it presents what we're learning in 3D, but a little bit complex in pulling things together. Dr. Jennings, how about your experience? What was your first experience like in learning and teaching anatomy?
So You know, I've experienced it as a student as well. You know, in med school, I graduated about 15 years ago from med school, and so it was a very different educational environment there. I did pure cadaver dissection, PowerPoint lectures, you know, with a little bit of clinical application before we went in, and then we would spend the first 8 weeks of med school basically living in the cadaver lab, dissecting, doing our best just to find whatever little structures that we could to identify and understand the anatomy. And I think that's really where the differences come now with the application of the technology. It allows it to be so much more succinct. You know, I think part of the difficulty, you know, in the beginning, we've always been a hybrid. So we started with hollow anatomy from the beginning due to buy-in from our dean, but we also have been doing cadaveric dissection as well. So we do a very mixed kind of exposure between them. And that's really, as an educator in anatomy, that's really the only thing I've known, because I started with the med school about 9 years ago. So we started doing that all at the same time. But I can say, in contrast to my experience, the amount of time it takes to get to the heart of what we're trying to teach them is so much faster. We're using hollow anatomy with even a combination of dissection. Even once we send them into the cadaver lab, it's going to take them a while to find whatever it is that we want them to find and to get down to those structures. But I think really being able to accentuate those things through hollow anatomy and then go in makes just a radical difference in what they're retaining, what they're seeing, their level of understanding before they even go into lab, or even while they're just using the platform alone. So
It's interesting. You each had different experiences, but the challenges came out clear. Understanding the spatial relationships, being able to find structures, which comes up in conversations I've had quite a bit before, and then still having to rely on traditional methods that may or may not be accessible by everyone. So it's interesting that you both had similar challenges, but also unique as well. So let's talk a little bit about the decision that was actually made to implement immersive technology like hollow anatomy that we've mentioned. What did the transition look like, and how was it integrated into the curriculum? And let's go back to you, Dr. Jennings. Talk me through that.
So our biggest thing is that our dean was really bought into using this advanced technology from the beginning. So I think that was my biggest hurdle probably that I would have needed to overcome if that hadn't already been down for me. And so having that leadership that allowed me to kind of explore a lot of these options really made things much easier. And he's a pathologist, and so not huge into clinical practice, but he loved the anatomy, he loved histology, he loved gross anatomy, and I think seeing this platform and using technology to enhance it was something that was what he was envisioning for our school. You know, what our kind of whole take is that since I'm the director for innovation, we do innovation not just for innovation's sake. It has to be quality. It has to be something that is meaningful and impacting to our students. And I think that's probably one of the keys of implementing this is identifying those things that were truly quality and impacting to the student, and then expanding it out to the educator. You know, so it was okay, well, you know, when in hollow anatomy or using XR, you can see vasculature from beginning to end. You can see the whole structure and get it in perspective of where it's coming from the heart all the way down to the distal fingertips. It's not just this isolated thing. And I think that piece then made it so that we could transmit it to the faculty, to where then the faculty understood, okay, if I use this technology, then I can really focus in on these couple of different pieces that are really, really hard to emphasize in any other modality. So I think that was that was a big piece. And then, you know, finances are always always tough. Being a new med school, you know, we didn't have any graduates or anything to help us out with money, but you know, luckily TCU is a pretty large school, and so big platform for us was I use this for donors that come through all the time. So a lot of my showcasing of our school's abilities in different technology platforms. I do it for a lot of our donors so that it kind of perpetuates itself at that point. So I think those are some of the major hurdles that that we had to overcome. I hope I answered that question. Again, my ADD is just kicking in hardcore right now.
No, you did excellent insights that you shared. And part of what you shared reminded me, and it goes to earlier discussions about how important it was to have a vetted solution, not just taking new technology that hadn't shown positive impact on the learning outcome. So I know that was very important to TCU. Dr. Jeter, tell us about the Kansas Com decision to implement this technology.
So I already mentioned that we, as a new medical school, had a philosophy of one that welcomed technology. So just as Dr. Jennings was mentioning the importance of having your administration and dean on board, I knew I had them aligned with the philosophy of our anatomy education program. And I will say that in probably our first or second year of educating students, we did have various immersive technologies. Some were headsets that were corded, some were giant touchscreen TVs. And these each had their own pros and cons that ended up for us being more cons than pros. For example, with the corded headsets, it made it harder for the students with the headsets to move around the space. And because of the expense of that setup, it limited us to having too few hardware sets, not accommodating the large class size that we had. So it was through some of those early trials that administration and anatomy faculty said, yes, we need to switch to a different immersive technology, namely holoanatomy, that is paired with cordless headsets, and that students can roam the room to different what are called pods to join small groups of peers to work together on the holograms that they are seeing. Some of this transition was beyond administration and anatomy faculty who are already ideologically on the same page, but it's even to other faculty like clinicians or basic science faculty from other disciplines that were not used to the technology. And so as we would explain to them, as well as to our medical school applicants, the advantages, some of this was convincing them that progress is important and good. And I guess the point I want to make here is I was lobbying that any school needs to be constantly reassessing their purpose and modality across the years. Though, for example, cadaver dissection has been the stalwart in anatomy education for over a century, as new opportunities and technologies come on board, it's worthwhile to assess, is this new one something that we as a school should adopt? And so it's almost a worldview. I wanted to be surrounded at an institution where others shared the worldview of acknowledging that we should change and advance with technology, almost being evidence-based as we progress to find new ways to do things well.
Interesting. A couple of things you said really struck at me and really reinforced the theme of the discussion today, which is innovating on tradition and doing it in a way, to your point, that makes it more accessible. One of the challenges I mentioned in the opening was giving that opportunity to all the different students, that if we're looking at traditional dissection, there's limited ability for them to engage and time taking away for them to take away from their studies to travel to wherever they need to go to experience that. Whereas you look for a technology that could be break down and make more democratic the access to actually experience what the real spatial relationships are between the different structures. So very interesting. And I'm curious, as you both adapted this technology to your curriculum, and by all means mention anything that you found in terms of, let me just take a quick question on that. As you were adapting to the curriculum, did you find that it was an opportunity for you to take what existing in how you teach and actually change, not just change it too much, but actually adapt with the technology? Or did you find that there were resistance from the faculty as you were working with them. Let me go back to Dr. Jennings. When you think about the faculty and what they had to do, how was that experience?
That fits in. I was about to jump in and kind of share a couple of insights from my experience. I shared a little bit about this. So I teach all through the curriculum at the med school. So I teach in what we call phase one, which is the basic sciences portion and anatomy. Then once they're in the clerkships, I teach there and take on students, and then I have them as they're in their final class right before they graduate, what we call transition to residency. And so I have actually had a lot of success implementing hollow anatomy and using a lot of our augmented technologies. We use a few other programs in throughout the curriculum. So it's become applicable to Dr. Jeter's point, to a lot of our clinicians. I use it for central line teaching for residents. So I'll superimpose the anatomy of, like subclavian and internal jugular on top of all the other structures that could cause some kind of adverse event. And then we'll go through that anatomy and then put a task trainer on top of that so that they can almost overlay the anatomy and see what they're dealing with real time. And then we also have used it in some of our OB scenarios. So a lot of our OB docs love it. I use it for lumbar punctures to help really, accentuate the anatomy of the down by the cauda equina and where the needle's going to go in. And I overlay that on task trainers as well. So they actually do the LP, get fluid out. So there's a lot of, I think getting the buy-in is you have to have someone that is willing to do it first, I think, is the big thing. So I'm kind of our guinea pig, so I kind of will just come up with random things and try new ideas. And luckily I have that kind of freedom in our curriculum that all of our curriculum committee, and I'm on our curriculum committee too, but they all allow me a lot of educational freedom to try out all kinds of crazy new things. And whenever I've done that, it's then brought along a lot of people. Since I started doing that, a lot of our graduate medical education programs in the area are always requesting to come to our facility, use our equipment, be able to use essentially my lectures to then overlay so that they can do everything. So it's been pretty easy on that front. And then as far as from our anatomy faculty, we have Dr. Abby Rathna, who came to us a few years ago as kind of our champion for hollow anatomy on the pure anatomist side. And he does just some incredible, team-based activities. He'll do TBLs and put cahoots inside the different sessions and like all kinds of different things. And I think that has really changed our whole faculty's perspective. Plus, I think we're in a different era. With AI coming along, everyone is so focused on AI, technology advancements, all these things. It all kind of comes in a shift, and I think as a whole profession, we're a little less hesitant to engage in new technology than maybe we were 10 years ago. That's just my overall feeling. But we've had quite a bit of buy-in. We get clinicians and anatomists, everybody on board using this thing. And back to Dr. Jeter's point about the class sizes, we only have 60 students, but I want to just, agree with her that having a tethered version with corded headsets is really a bummer. It makes it really hard to to really launch that technology. And so with the HoloLens and now going to the Quest, I think it's a huge movement forward to make this more accessible to everybody.
Awesome. And as you're sharing, one of the things I'll do for the folks that attended, I'll make sure that they can see the video that TCU produced that has a scene where they're actually applying a clinical scenario and being able to use the immersive technology to learn. Hopefully, you're not still chasing people around with very large holograms and scaring them with hollow anatomy. But Dr. Jeter, I wanted to talk a little bit about at Kansas Com. You've got a unique way of adapting to technology where you can turn to an expert with the technology and kind of describe what needs to happen, what needs to put together. Talk to me a little bit about that and about how that's helped with the faculty adoption.
So we are blessed at Kansas Com to not only have the experts in anatomy, namely our faculty, but an outstanding media team that takes on the duties of managing the hardware and software for hollow anatomy, namely keeping the headsets charged or providing battery packs to go along with that, making sure that the software program file that we faculty have created is uploaded to the cloud in the given week that it's needed. And so in this way, it's a tag team for a seamless experience for the end user, the student. And another point I want to make is it's not just that process that makes a successful laboratory session. It's also the mode of delivery and the amount of teamwork that the students are asked to do. In our first year of using hollow anatomy, students would don their headsets, stand at their proper spot in the room, and I, as the faculty member, would speak to them over a microphone. And they said, well, your voice is so calming, Dr. Jeter. We almost want to fall asleep in this laboratory session. It's almost a carbon copy of a lecture, but we just have headsets on. We want more interactivity. We want more teamwork. And so we've morphed through probably even version 2.0 or 3.0 of how we have students lead themselves almost more in a self-guided way, in that each pod or small group of students has a designated student leader that advances the team through the series of holograms with guidance from either a worksheet or an in-house created app that partners and guides them. All the while, faculty with their own headsets are able to pop in and out of these team working pods of students to support them or ask insightful questions that continues the conversation. I want to compare this to how the enthusiasm has grown among our faculty body. I would say just like you have friends who were early adopters of smartphones compared to dumb flip phones, that is kind of the way it has worked in the faculty body as well. Some who are early enthusiasts and adopters, and others who are later comers. But it delights me as each and every faculty comes forward over time. Most recently, we had a faculty member, probably in his 70s, who came to me and said, Dr. Jeter, would you help me have some time with the hollow anatomy software? I have a specific anatomical structure that I'm teaching during our clinical curriculum, and I've realized that if I, the educator, have a better 3D imagery of this structure, I will be a better communicator of this technique to our students. And of course, that has led to discussions of collaboration. So it's ever evolving, and that's part of the excitement.
It's incredible listening to you both. The theme of collaborative learning has really come up in both your institutions, and something we've seen in many of the discussions that we've had, that students do want to learn together, and this is a very complex target content. Understanding the structures, the relationships. It's funny, even in my own learning in the past few years working with you folks, it's the most complex machine I could ever think of. So to be able to do that in a collaborative way, and then be able to experience it in a way that they kind of expect too, because the other element in all of this is, as we talk about the students coming up with more and more technology, a lot of them will probably have a MetaQuest 3 that they're already using for some maybe entertainment, maybe learning. And so when they get to the school, they're kind of expecting a new way of actually interacting and learning. So very interesting. When we think about the students, and of course we were looking for positive impact on there, and we're looking for their reactions. How have the students responded to the technology? And maybe Dr. Jennings, maybe you could share a few anecdotes of how students are grasping this and leveraging it.
They love it. I think we've learned a lot of lessons over time, and sometimes less is more. I think is probably the biggest lesson we've learned from the students. They want high impact, quick. They want the Instagram reels of anatomy. Like it's kind of how their brains are working these days, which is we just have to adapt to. That's okay. And I think they love the interactiveness. They love we at TCU we do everything is basically built on a dyad. So there's an anatomy professor plus a clinician that almost does every single session together, and then so that gives a lot of perspective on what's clinically relevant, what's like a very important anatomical piece. Because sometimes I may yet not use something in clinical practice all of the time, but for understanding some of the deeper structures and relationships, it's still important to understand some of those things. And so having that dyad helps out, but that translates directly to the students. And again, in that kind of collaborative methodology of using it. But they have loved it so much that now, so we offer a anatomy elective in their third year where they can come. It's a clinical elective, so they'll usually do it with a clinician and an anatomist. So that for the emergency medicine one, they'll come with me and we do cadaveric procedures. But most of the time, they want to. I make them do a little capstone project kind of at the end of it, and they almost always want to create a hollow anatomy session. They want to take whatever procedure it is or 10 procedures that they're going to be doing, and they want to create a hollow anatomy session that shows you how to work through each procedure. And to me, that just shows that they're really getting it and they're enjoying it. And I think that now kind of how Dr. Jeter's kind of morphed the way she's launched her sessions. We have two, and we continue to kind of change them to where sometimes it's a complete standalone session, but sometimes it's an intro session where we go through the complexities of the hand or their foot, the things that are really hard to dissect. Like I said before, focusing on the vasculature and its completeness as opposed to just isolated to whatever structure we're dissecting, and then launching them into the cadaver lab at that point. And so it tends to be almost like a dissection primer that then gives them that additional confidence when they're going into the cadaver lab. And I think that piece, having them be just more confident in the lab and have the additional understanding from using hollow anatomy has been huge for us.
Student confidence. It rings a lot of bells in previous conversations that I've also had in terms of, I didn't realize this until you folks educated me that when you're working in dissection, you're not exactly seeing what you should be seeing. You may not be able to see it, or the color might be different, or the person that you're working with, and very nice of them to be able to make that available, but they may not have the structure that you're looking at. That's one of the reasons why the original Hollow Anatomy 3D art was meticulously designed with the experts to make sure that all could be represented and color coded so that it could be experienced. And I've also heard a lot of stories where they're going into the lab, but then they're coming back out and using Hollow Anatomy to reinforce what they just learned. And Dr. Jeter, I know I saw a lot of head nodding, so it sounds like you have a lot of similar experiences.
One thing I love about having this discussion among all of us is, as Dr. Jennings made a few points, I thought, yes, I want to tag team to that. This was how students can have their focus honed, almost like the spotlight of their learning attention directed to a specific hologram that the faculty member has chosen to make a specific point. Hollow anatomy experience advances almost like a PowerPoint presentation advances from each scene to the next scene, presenting a series of holograms. In this way, as the educator, I am controlling what the student consumes and understands about the development of an anatomical concept. To me, I find that very complementary to almost kind of going into the Wild West of the dissection lab, where students are left perhaps not knowing the sequence of decisions or logical understandings, the epiphanies that they should have. So this is another way that immersive technology is very complementary to tradition.
I remember one anecdote you previously shared with me, Dr. Jeters, is acknowledging the wow factor when the students first expressed with this, and letting them get over that so that they can then say make the connection to actually learning. I imagine those are still going on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When we think about, and there's the folks that are listening to the conversation and hearing the journey that you folks have already taken, what would you say to any school or college or organizations that's actually thinking about making the leap to immersive learning? What key lessons would you offer? And maybe just go back to you, Dr. Jeter. What would you say to those folks?
Both Dr. Jennings and I have made it clear that it's important to have an administration, dean, chief financial officer on board, whoever that champion is needed to make the leap. My advice is to learn to think from that leader's perspective and then pitch your argument such that it appeals to or meets the objectives of that leader. An example I'll give is I actually was at a faculty training session where I learned this important lesson. The leader was saying she was in charge of the university's faculty development program that occurred in a physical space with tables and chairs. That needed to be remodeled and updated. Her first pitch to her supervisor was, I need money to remodel the faculty development room. And he says, no, we're not in the interior decorating business. I'm not giving you that large sum of money. She went away and rethought her pitch and realized, no, actually what my supervisor cares about is the learning outcomes of the faculty and that development proceeds on schedule, all these things to meet accreditation standards. So she returned a second time, reframing her pitch that via movable tables and chairs and modular spaces, she was going to be more flexible and adroit in delivering the faculty development that would meet X, Y, and Z standards that was a necessary part of accreditation for the school. I'm offering that up as an example of a corollary that any of us as anatomy faculty or enthusiasts of immersive technology can use as a strategy to give the sales pitch as to why this is a valuable component to your home school's or your school's anatomy program.
What a great anecdote. I love the connection to accreditation. I've been through that with previous institutions, and it's quite a process to go through. So what a great connection they made on that. Very nice. Dr. Jennings, what advice do you have to any organization, institution, college thinking about adopting this technology?
So for pretty much everybody, it's going to be cost. I think everyone, it's a monetary thing. Where am I going to get the money? Who's going to pay for these things? And, I think that the key one, I agree with Dr. Jeter, absolutely getting the vision of your leadership and then leveraging that to what you want as far as, how much money, what kind of technology you're going to need. So just as an example, similar to us, we had one of our local pharmaceutical type companies. They make biomedical devices, but they really wanted increased ophthalmological education to help spur students going into ophthalmology and to really understand the anatomy of the eye and a lot of those things. So we leveraged that particular thing because we wanted that relationship with that entity as well. And so we helped to leverage that and say, okay, well, if you provide money for us to get headsets, well, then we're going to increase our ophthalmological education. You guys can come and use these. It became more of a little bit of a partnership. And identifying those go a really long way. Same with graduate medical education, residency programs in your area. If you can find clinicians who can partner with you to use this, because you're not using them all day, every day. And just like Dr. Jeter, I manage our team that oversees all of this technology and takes care of everything. And so they're not going 24 hours a day. They may be going 3 days out of the week pretty intensely, but we may have a day out of the week where if a GME program wants to come through, they could use the headsets to learn some anatomy. Most of the time, those residency programs have additional funding for things like that. They may be able to just straight purchase your headsets and use your space. There's lots of ways to work that out. Also grants and things that you can get as well. But I think that big picture is, okay, I need the money. The granular is, how do I get my leadership on board and my mindset the same as theirs to get us to that ultimate point that I want us to be at. So that I'm on the same page as Dr. Jeter with all that.
You reminded me, one of the best ways to experience the technology we're talking about, of course, is to try it and making that connection with alumni and investors, grantors, and whatnot, and being able to uh, showcase the leadership to sometimes peers is what comes up as an opportunity to showcase, position yourself as a leader, but also to get support that you need. Very good. Thank you very much for both sharing that. I know we could continue another hour, and one day we will when we get together. But I know the attendees also have some questions that they would like to table. So I'll say uh, thank you for now, and then I'll bring back Adam. Adam, why don't you let us know what kind of questions that have come up from the audience?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Dr. Jennings and Dr. Jeter, it's always a pleasure to hear from both of you. Um, so we do have a question from one of our attendees. How has immersive learning coexisted with other modalities? Have you decreased cadaver labs experiences, changed your approach to lectures at all?
I'll start by just saying that at our school, which is brand new, we got to start with a blank slate. And so through educational philosophy and the science of learning, we were able to construct laboratory sessions that are balanced with lecture content. And so the anatomy lab content can complement and augment what students are learning in their class that the laboratory complements. When they come to the laboratory session, I'll actually say that we have been able to have laboratory sessions that are maybe only 2-3 hours per week, rather than some other programs that have 1 or 2 laboratory sessions in the week for any given student. During those hours, students are rotating through different stations and activities that we believe gives the full picture for the concept of the week.
Excellent. Dr. Jennings?
Can you repeat the question? I got
Of
distracted.
course. I was about to say with the ADD coming in.
Yeah.
How has immersive learning coexisted with other modalities? And have you seen a decrease in cadaver lab experience, change your approach to lectures at all?
No. So we split very similar to Dr. Jeter. We have different stations essentially that we have them rotate through most of the time. So it's always in addition to, because we only have 10 tanks for our 60 students and not a huge lab. So we like to keep our dissecting groups small. So most of the time we will break them up. So we have a smaller group dissecting. There may be a group either doing hollow anatomy or they're doing an activity with one of our clinicians, kind of the clinical application, and we're rotating all through those things. Since we are lucky enough to get to do both, I think that since we're allowed to have cadaver lab and hollow anatomy at the same time, it makes it so that we can really kind of expand the whole thing. I don't feel like it's cut in. I can't currently imagine doing it any other way, just because that's what I've been used to for so many years now. But I think I don't think it's cut in or changed a whole lot. I think if we did not, I think anatomy would look so different without hollow anatomy. I think if we did not use the hollow anatomy technology, I don't think it would have lended itself to where we were doing the rotations. We would have probably had to have built a bigger cadaver lab to house all of our students at one time. I think it would have changed if we hadn't been planning on using hollow straight from the beginning. Our entire trajectory for anatomy, building creation, we just built a new building 2 years ago. All of those things would have changed probably to the tune of millions of dollars, I would think, in the long run.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And love the answers coming in and the questions as well. And another one from another attendee is curious about, so we understand with VR, there's been a lot of reports out there and research that it causes some sort of dizziness, but with mixed reality, can you tell us your experience of students putting on the headset and seeing any students, did they have any issues with that? Or is it more open to bringing on more students because there isn't as much problems as you have with mixed reality being put on?
I can start off with that one. We've had, with accommodations and students having, there's been multiple adjustments we've had to make, some with severe ocular migraines, you know, color perception difficulties. You know, there's a lot of things, and the headsets actually adjust to those pretty dang well. With the HoloLens, we did not have a whole lot of difficulty with that, the dizziness and the kind of overall eye strain and difficulties, but we normally will set up a separate option. So we have, you know, a big screen or setup that's running whatever session we're doing at the time. And then with the new Quest setup, using the Quest for this, I mean, you can actually see what another person is viewing. So we will, you know, we're planning on just streaming it up to all the screens. We'll have one dedicated person from each group that streams to a screen. That way, if you somehow, you know, had some difficulties, you could take the headset off for a little while. But that's part of keeping the sessions a little shorter. You know, it's really about length of time in the headset, quality of the optics. The new MetaQuest 3 has great optics, and the lenses are actually very user friendly and help with that. So I think we're making a lot of progress in the technology side. And then also, if you just make a few accommodations of limiting the amount of time, maybe even having a break set up in the middle of it. So if you're doing a long session, have them take a quick 5-minute break, even do a little quiz on a Kahoot, do something on the screen, then jump back in. I think that's been kind of what's helped us the most.
Excellent.
I'll say
Dr.
ditto. We've done all those same things. And so my point is it's multiple institutions finding viable solutions. It really can work.
That's great to hear.
It is, and it reinforces one of the reasons why the originator, Case Western Reserve University, chose mixed reality was so that they could maximize that experience and reduce some of the challenges that you've heard on some of the other technology and be able to see the students. It's one of the reasons why, as Alencia XR evolved with the .next platform, we made sure we enabled MetaQuest 3 that can continue that pass-through mixed reality. So thank you for sharing that. Adam, I think we have time for one more question.
Sean, can I add one thing to
Yeah,
that real
sure.
quick? It'll take me 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So
No.
with the MetaQuest 3, it also helps that, so with the pass-through, you know, even we do this for practicals. So they do practical exams in a holoanatomy session, at least part of their practical. And it's so clear, they can still write their exam answers on a piece of paper through the pass-through without making it, you know, causing a lot of issues. So the technology is really improving.
Incredible. And the good news is as well, the .next platform is actually going to makes it easier to adopt newer technology that comes out. So we're always looking at the different devices. But thank you for sharing that too, Dr. Jennings. Adam, we have time for one more question.
All right, let's make it a fun one. So let's do a little bit of a thought experiment, two-part question. If you had to go to your dean, what would be the most attractive things about holoanatomy where you can convince the dean and the leadership, we need this at our school? And just to throw on top of there, what strategies have worked best in helping your faculty feel confident using the technology?
You've thrown on a lot in there, Adam.
Yeah, let's start with the first part.
So the first one, what immediately came to my mind is I would go to my dean with a two-prong approach. I would not only present to him how holoanatomy and immersive technology in general would benefit the students' learning outcomes, speeding them to mastery of anatomical knowledge, which is foundational for their successful progress through the remainder of medical school. That's one pitch. The parallel pitch is showing all the additional uses for this technology that is not afforded through traditional cadaver dissection. For example, at our school, we are constantly offering tours to the community, whether it's a potential philanthropist or a state representative or faculty in the community who might come on as a part-time clinical faculty member and wants to see the resources of the school. We've even offered CE courses, for example, learning POCUS, point of care ultrasound, where they also can use holoanatomy to see the anatomy through the hologram and partner it with the hand skills of using the ultrasound wand. That list is nearly infinite. And so that helps the dean see more broadly why the price tag is worth the expenditure.
Very
Perfect.
good.
We'll
And
we'll
Dr.
leave the
Jennings?
second part to Dr. Jennings
Oh,
about that.
Okay,
Which
what was the second part?
the
Trying to get
second part
people.
was which strategies work best in helping your faculty feel confident and comfortable using this immersive technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just getting their hands on it. I think getting them in the headsets, showing them what they can and can't do, showing them how easy the platform is to create a session. I think those are the keys. I think the biggest hindrance you're going to find is they think they can't master the technology. They think it's going to be this super complicated thing, and to create this body, they're almost imagining they're going to have to create this drawing and this body to make it all work, and they don't realize that it's more of a checklist of things mixed with a PowerPoint that allows you to progress. So I think really honing in on the simplicity of it and then demonstrating it, maybe even having a quick 2 minute video that shows how you put together a quick slide, how easy it was for you to click on the things that you wanted or take off the things that you didn't. I think that goes a long way for the faculty. And then I'm 1 second of jumping back to the other question. I would say that so our whole school is based on creating empathetic scholars. That's what our kind of trademark thing is. And I think when for us in particular, when we're using hollow anatomy to prep the students to give them that deeper understanding before they go in and see their patient, which we consider their cadaver, their first patient, it sets them up for success in a way that demonstrates that empathy. That when they go in, they have the idea of, I'm not just going in to slice and dice and try and find these things. It's okay, I'm going in with a purpose to learn these things, to understand what I'm getting myself into, to treat this cadaver with respect, to appreciate that the education that they're giving to me. And so I think from my personal perspective, and for those who are going to be, would do both modalities, I think that's where I would come from.
very good advice. And with that final question, we'll wrap up the panel discussion and Q&A. I know we could go on for another hour. So I thank Dr. Jennings and Dr. Jeter for sharing your valuable insights today. Thank you very much. I'll just leave folks with a final couple of thoughts. A lot of what we've been talking about today is leveraging technology to reimagine anatomy learning. And in Alencia Dark XR, we've taken that to heart as we've created the .next platform, which is an immersive learning platform that now underpins hollow anatomy that we were just talking about in hollow anatomy neuro. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, that was built on a foundation that was established at Case Western Reserve University, but it reinforces with this update 3 core benefits. And the first is that it enables the instructors, as we've talked a little bit about, to do customized lessons to adapt to how they want to learn, help their students learn, and to be able to tap into their own content as well as Hollow Anatomy Library, so that they can actually present normal or even abnormal structures. And so the second thing is that it brings to life anatomy in front of the students as they're learning. And so when we look at, they'll look at a shared body of an XR environment as they're collaboratively learning. The MetaCrest 3, as we talked about earlier, provides that detailed structure that they can see and make the connections. And they can even manipulate and do regional dissection or group learning. And the third is that actually anatomy, the color enhanced anatomical models that allow the visibility that they wouldn't necessarily see in other modalities. And speaking of the library comes in 2 packages. And first we have hollow anatomy, traditional supports gross anatomy, has over 7,000 structures covering 15 male and female systems. And then, as Dr. Jeter was talking about, we have hollow anatomy neuro, which actually delivers the most detailed 3D neuroanatomy available. And to tap into all of this, the .next platform actually provides just 2 apps. The first is the desktop hub. And that's where you're able to bring that into this into the classroom, your command center for immersive learning. And this is where you can customize the lessons and integrate with your own content, bring in your own content, and structure it how you need it. And the second thing is the XR viewer, the running, as we talked about, on MetaQuest 3 and as well as HoloLens. It delivers that life-size exploration, the dynamic interaction, the real-time collaboration, or even individual learning that folks can have. So those two apps actually bring this solution into the classroom or individual, even remote learners. So as you continue exploring what's possible for your institution, here's a few steps you can take. The next webinar we have is actually lined up for September 17th, and we'll make sure you get a link to that you can register. And I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Rolfe from Case Western Reserve University School of Dental Medicine. And he's going to be talking about how anatomy learning is being reinvented for dental education. And I would say this, what we talked about, and I've already had a few conversations with him, what he's learned and what he shared will actually go beyond dental programs. So we'd love for you to join us, even if dental medicine isn't your focus. Speaking of webinars are a great way to learn these kind of insights from real faculty, real leaders, as we've spoken through today, and gain their insights into what's happening at their institution and how that could replicate and benefit your students at yours. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at past webinars, and again, we'll provide you the link to connect there. And you'll even find recent webinars with the two panelists that we talked about, where we're going deeper into how that supports their institution and how that actually drives better learning outcomes for both of them. And so when you're taking a look at past webinars, if you're on our site, the second thing I'd encourage you to do is keep learning. We talked a little bit about some of the videos, and so you'll find those on the site. You'll find some of the research, and as we talked about, the importance of having a solution that has been shown to help students. And so when we look at the research, and you'll be able to read the reports yourself, you'll see there's been findings of actually students being able to reduce their learning time by 1/3 and apply that in other areas. And we've also found through holoanatomy research that retention can improve as much as 40% beyond without holoanatomy. So these kind of learning outcomes, you'll be able to dive into yourself. And of course, when you reach a point where your own program, you want to explore and achieve the similar outcomes that we've talked about, we welcome the conversation. Please reach out. We'd be glad to explore with you and connect. So this concludes the formal part of the presentation. I do want to say another thank you to my guests, Dr. Cameron Jeter from Kansas Com and Dr. Adam Jennings from TCU. Thank you for sharing all the challenges and insights that you had today. And I also want to thank you, the audience, for participating in this. We hope you found this to be a rich conversation with your peers and understanding what's possible out there. So we enjoyed bringing you the insights. We also recognize the challenge you face as educators in navigating technology, especially XR technology, and finding the path to those better outcomes. So Alencia XR would love to offer our deep expertise in immersive learning and our academic foundation to work with you to navigate the technology and really understand how you can adapt to better learning outcomes. As a follow-up to the webinar, you're going to receive a survey when the webinar ends. We really appreciate your feedback, and we do read all the comments and recommendations. You'll also be receiving a follow-up email in the next couple of days that will have links to the recording, as well as some of the other material that we talked about. As a final, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to continuing the discussion.